Hi everyone. In this lecture, we're going to learn about the structural system of a house. And first we're going to cast our net widely and look at all the different types of structural systems that could be used. And then narrow in, we'll look at wood framed homes, all right, using platform framing. So we'll take a look at lumber, what it is and how it's used, and then go through the platform framing system with floors, walls, and roofs. There are two major types of structural systems we can categorize here. And the first one is framing systems versus mass wall systems. Looking at framing systems, you could have both heavy and light. Examples of heavy framing are structural steel and also post and beam. Examples of light framing systems are platform framing and balloon framing. Moving over to that mass wall side, you can have monolithic or modular. Monolithic means it's all one giant piece. Right? And modular means a whole bunch of smaller pieces working together. So looking at monolithic mass wall systems, you can have concrete, or very uncommon, you can have rammed earth. Right? And over in the modular side, you can have masonry, right? That's far more common, and log cabins would also fall under this system. So let's start with those heavy framing systems, looking at structural steel. In this type of system, steel beams and columns are going to create the structural frame, and all the rest of the building, the exterior walls, the floors, the furnishings, etc., they all hang on that steel frame. Structural steel is fantastic for long spans, and therefore it's more common for larger buildings. You will see it in larger multifamily buildings, and you'll see the occasional structural steel beam in a single-family residence. Our next heavy framing system is called post and beam. It's very similar, except we have large wooden members to create a structural frame. It's easiest to see right here. All right, this whole building is done in a post and beam system. You can see large individual members, all right, form up the structural system of the building. Here's another example here of post and beam, all right, structural system. And over here is a really common residential system for exposed structure. So this house back here is probably using the more common platform framing system, right? But out here at the porch, we've got some post and beam structural system. Let's move over to the light framing side, right? And we're going to spend most of our time studying this light framing system in the rest of the course because it's the most commonly used system for residences here in the US. And the characteristics of a light framing system is that multiple, much smaller members all work together to form a structural component, whether it be a roof, a wall, or a floor. All right. It can be made out of wood, this is really common right here, or steel studs, this is cold formed steel. There are two types of these light framing systems. Right. Starting on the right, we've got a balloon frame construction, right? Balloon frame. What is a balloon frame? The difference is we have long wall studs. All right, see how they span all the way from the foundation, this is one member, all the way up to the roof. All right, so that is the characteristic of a balloon frame. And it was the most common structural system before about the 1940s. So if you're working on an older home, you might come across this one. Right? As opposed to, on the left-hand side, we have platform frame construction. Now, platform framing is going to have shorter studs. So starting over here, it goes from the foundation just to the next floor up. And those studs are kind of interrupted by a floor platform, and then you can have another story added on. Okay. 2 reasons for the shift from balloon to platform frame construction. First of all is the length of the studs. Those long pieces of lumber are more expensive. They take longer to grow, right, with the trees. And so we've moved to the shorter members, right? And that's also less expensive. And finally, fire safety. If you notice, because of the continuous nature of this piece, if there's a fire on the ground floor, it can kind of escape around these members and transmit it into the second floor. All right. It's easier to compartmentalize with the platform frame construction, and so a fire on the ground floor, for example, would take longer to break through to the second floor. All right, we're going to move from framing systems to mass systems, starting with concrete. Concrete is a monolithic mass system, and we can use it as a structural frame only, as in this piece, right? We've got the structural frame, and then the exterior walls will be kind of hung off of that. Or you can use the concrete to form all of the structural system, including the walls, floors, etc. Right? So where in this course have we already seen concrete used for a structural system? It was in the foundations, right? And those foundations are a monolithic mass system. Let's move to our second mass system, which is masonry. Masonry is a modular system. It's made up of individual units rather than being poured all at once. And the 2 really common masonry units that we use for our home structural systems are concrete masonry unit, and that's what we see right here. All right. Some other names for this are concrete block, cinder block, breeze blocks. All right. And also brick, right? So both CMU and brick are masonry. And because we're talking about structural systems here, I want to make sure that you know the difference between a brick cavity wall and a brick veneer system. Let's start with cavity walls. Up here on the upper left, we have a cavity wall system. And this is masonry, so our modular mass wall, being used as a structural system, and it's CMU right here. Right? This piece right here, this is the brick veneer. This is the pretty piece on the outside, all right? And this is not structural, right? And so the whole construction here is called a cavity wall because there's a gap between these 2 layers. All right, this is the cavity, and that's what the name comes from. But this piece right here, when we're talking about masonry structural system, that's what we're talking about. Now let's contrast that to a brick veneer wall using a platform framing system behind it, right? And this is much, much more common. So if you go drive around a neighborhood and you see homes that look like they're made out of brick, they're probably using a framing system. All right, so we look right here and we see that we've got the wood stud wall behind them and then a layer of brick, all right, as the veneer. So it looks like this as it's being constructed. Here is the whole wall and the framing system. That's the structural system of the home. And then the brick veneer is added to it. All right, I kind of blew up this photo so you can see that they are simply adding that brick veneer to a structural system that already exists. Our modular mass structural systems can also be made out of stone. Just like with the CMU and the brick, all right, the stone can be structural, and we've got some beautiful examples of it over here. We've got the Parthenon, all right, those are structural pieces of stone right there. And this one here is in Cusco in Peru, all right, we've got some structural stone walls. But again, if you drive around a modern neighborhood and you see a house that looks like stone on the outside, that's probably a veneer or an exterior siding. It's not a structural system. So I've kind of zoomed in on this section here so you can see that they're literally gluing that stone onto the house, right? The structural system is behind it. So in this video, we've taken a look at the wide variety of structural systems that could be used in our residential construction. And in the following videos, we're going to really narrow down and look at this platform framing system. It's going to look about like this, right? Because that is the most commonly used here in the US. Thanks, everyone.